I'll go ahead and load the software. The other thing you're going to need is a database. So like I said, you could use any SQL database of your choice. I happen to have a MySQL database on my computer. So let me show that to you. This is my MySQL workbench. And I'm just going to make a brand new database just for us to put some data in. So I'll just call the database water. It's a completely empty database. MySQL is a really good database to use. If you want to download it, you would just go to the MySQL website, www.mysql.com, and I've downloaded what's called the Community Edition, which is free. So that's actually located, let me open that up, right here. This is owned by Oracle. So I downloaded this community server, and then I downloaded the workbench right here. So that's what I'll be using today. Another thing I wanted to show you, and this you could watch on your own time, but if you go to Solutions here, and then Video Library, you'll see that we actually did a webinar specifically for the wastewater community, and that webinar is located right here. So you can actually take a look at what other people have, been doing with the software. They'll show you some existing systems. One is in San Diego, that's in Southern California, and then the other one is out in Texas. So they've done some really cool things with the software, and I recommend you take a look. I'll probably show you a couple of those later on. So I think we're done downloading. So I'm going to open up my download. Okay, here it is right here. This is the installer. Our database, and you can go ahead and launch those clients from the gateway, or you can actually make a little shortcut on your desktop to launch your Ignition clients. So it's going to install it at port 8088 on your computer. So that's just a default Ignition port. If you want to install it somewhere else, you're more than welcome to. From that port, you could actually go to, this is the address right here basically. So you can go to any other computer on your network right now, and what you would do is just open up your web browser and you would just type in the address or the IP, the name or the IP address of the computer that it's loaded on, followed by port 8088, and you can get to the same screen. So this is Ignition Gateway, and when you're playing with our software, you always want to use the username admin, and password is just password. And that will get you into this section. So you can look at your licensing, you can back up your gateway, restore it. It backs up and restores to one single file, which is nice. The user manual is in here. We don't have any projects. These are all the modules running in trial mode. They time out. This whole gateway times out every 2 hours, but once it hits 0, you can go ahead and reset the gateway over and over again if you want. So we give you the Allen Bradley drivers to try. This is mobile if you want to launch this onto a phone or tablet. There's the Modbus driver. This is our built-in OPC server. This is used if you're connecting to another OPC server of your choice. The reporting module, that's for nice dynamic PDF reports, kind of like Crystal reports. The SQL bridge, so that's what people will use as a data logger or a transaction manager, and that goes between the OPC server and any SQL database. This driver's for barcode scanners, scales, things like that, where you're just kind of listening on the network for TCP packets. And then this is the visual side of the system, the vision module. So I'm going to go ahead and connect to a device. So I'm going to use our built-in OPC server. And these are all the drivers. So I'm actually going to connect to a live PLC here on our network. So you just choose whatever driver you want, and then I'm just going to name that device. And then all you need is the IP address. So this device happens to be at this IP address on our network. So that's how you would use our built-in drivers. If you wanted to use another OPC server, you would just go here to OPC connections. And this is the built-in one, but say you wanted to use another one like Kepware, which I actually have on my computer. All you would need to do is basically, and if it's not Kepware, all you would need to do is fill in the prog ID right here. And you can get that from the other OPC server. And that's how you make another OPC server connection. So there's a couple different ways to connect to your device. So that's my 2 OPC servers, and then these are my devices. So I can connect to as many different devices as I want. So if I were using Modbus, I can use this. If you don't have a device to connect to and you just want to play with the software, you could use just a simulator. So I'm just going to use a generic simulator there and show you that. So we're connected to a device or devices, and then we can go ahead and connect to a database. So you don't have to connect to a database if you just want real-time data and like live monitoring and control. If you want anything like any type of historical data, then you would definitely need to connect to a database. So I'm going to use, these are the drivers that come with it. I'm going to use the MySQL connection. And I called that database water, so I'm just naming that connection. And this could be located anywhere on your network. It just happens to be on my computer at this port. So this is the information that is going to be custom to your situation. The default username and password for that database. And that's about it. So you can connect to as many different databases as you want. And then you can go ahead and launch the designer. So we're going to use admin and password again. So the designer and the client launch the same way. It uses Java Web Start to actually launch from this web page. So the client and the designer aren't actually running in a web page. They look like any other application on your machine, just like Outlook or Photoshop or whatever. So this is the part of the system that we call the SQL bridge, and this is where you can make, different groups, and say you want to take some information from your device here, and maybe you want to simply just log data at a rate. So you could just grab some tags. Say I want to log that data every 3 seconds, for example. Choose which database you want that to go to. There's no tables in there right now, so I'm going to have it create a table for me, and I'm just going to call it table 1. So we're just doing something really simple, just every 3 seconds, take the values and stick them in the database in this table. Other things you can do is log based on a trigger. So you can say, I only want to evaluate this group when one of these goes above or below a certain set point. See, and then you can reset the trigger. So you can handle those in here. But we're just going to kind of keep it simple for right now. So I'm going to go ahead and enable this group and then save it, and that starts up the group. So down at the bottom, you can look at the status. The total executions should go up here every 3 seconds, just like I planned. And then if I want to actually look at that table to the right here, I can actually pull up a query browser. So if I auto refresh this, you can see that the data is now going into the database every 3 seconds, and you can look at those values. It added an index and a time and date stamp because I had I chose that selection over here. And there's my table. So that's how easy it is to log data. Another thing you can do is use the vision module. You can have as many groups as you want. By the way, groups are just pretty much islands of data that allow you to administer different logic to each group. So this is the vision module. So this is where you can create all your windows. So say you want to look at that table that we just created. just grab this table component here, and every component is editable by using this property editor window down here. So that table, I'm going to go ahead and bind that. You can bind things to anything. You can bind a component to tag history, a tag, indirect tag, property, expression, and you have these expression builders in here where you can pull in tags, and then you can do mathematical or logical expressions, and then you've got all these functions that you can work with. So there's a lot of things you can do. It's very flexible. Or you can do simple DB browse, where I can just basically look at that database, look at that table, and then maybe I just want to highlight all of these columns. And what that does at the bottom is it actually generates a SQL query for me. So you could use DB browse, or if you're good at SQL queries, you just do a freeform SQL query in here. And then I'll just hit OK. So there is my table now in my client. So I can take a look at that, and I'll keep adding every 3 seconds. Other things you can do is show some live data. And to do that, I'm going to create some SQL tags. So I'm just going to go here to View. Then I made those OPC connections earlier. And here's my browser. Oops. So maybe I want to take from my micrologics, maybe like this whole N7 folder, and I want to make what's called SQL tags out of those. SQL tags is just a way of making it really easy to get up and going with designing. So there's my generic simulator there. Maybe I'll take some of those tags as well. And you could take some from Kepware, whatever you want. So now that I have those tags, I can come in and maybe I want to display this data on my screen, some live data. So maybe I'll make this an LED display, or maybe I want to present that as a tank. So you can also come up here and use any of these components, these displays here. So maybe this is a temperature display, and I'll put a label here. Maybe this is a progress bar. And then you can go back here and you can actually drag these tags on to bind them instead. So that's pretty simple. We also have like an IP camera component. So if you have IP cameras around, you can actually get in some JPEG stills or streaming video into your project. More chart tables. You can import your own images, so you can use our built-in library. And so we've got all these images in here for you to use that come with Ignition. But if you want to, and you can animate these, color them, make them blink, whatever. But if you want to import your own, you can just go ahead and upload new image, and then you would just choose an image from your network of any of these formats right here, and you can bring those images in.